Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Hi, of course I can hear you.
There we go. Okay. I couldn't hear you at all, but
Yeah.
I think things are better now.
Is it? Yeah, good morning if it's morning wherever you are. Are you in Canada?
No, I'm in Minnesota. Very close, though. It's just underneath. It's about, 7 p.m., I think about, so.
Oh, 7 p.m. already?
Yeah, near the end.
Okay, yeah. So how are you doing? Is it recording? Is everything ready?
Yeah, everything's ready.
You know,
I was going to say, last time we talked, we broke the internet, and I think every time we talk, we kind of stumbled upon some things. And people who've been trying to talk about the things we were talking about, I've been seeing people get weird strikes, and they're trying to hide some of this information. So I feel like we really have to push even harder into what you brought up last time. And I know, like, cannibalism was only just the beginning of what we were talking about. So I just, take it away, David. How you been?
Yeah, I've been fine, very fine. That last book, Skull and Bones. Yeah, it was. It went around like fire, actually. Yeah, so been busy with that book, actually. Yeah, and
That's wonderful.
so the thing is, I read some strange comments. We did the last video. Like, for example, somebody said, "Hey, this guy David, he's saying." He's reading their history and then he's saying it's wrong from what they're saying. I'll give you an example. When somebody's in a relationship, if the guy or the girl or whoever's cheating, yeah, what you do is you examine what they say. And based on what they say, you can figure out if they're lying. And then what they normally try to do, if they are lying, is to delete the history or text messages or the WhatsApp. Yeah? Yeah. So that's what they've done with history.
Absolutely.
This is so if somebody says, how do you know they're lying? You check through what they wrote in history. And then after you've checked it, that's when you turn and think, they just said this, now they just said that, so now we know they lied.
Right. Well, it's interesting because last time we were talking about, Kufic and cubic, this idea of this alphabet from the city that is kind of, what exists there, how long did it exist, what was there before, all these questions that came up. And so many people, granted, there were just all sorts of comments, but from all over the world with people that had all sorts of information. One of the things I thought was interesting was someone was saying, hey, this area that was conquered by the Arabians originally was part of the Aramaean dynasty, or whatever you call the Aram Damascus kingdom of the Near East, and so they would have been speaking a Proto-Aram, some sort of Proto-Aramaic, and that kind of seemed interesting. What if they took the script and changed the language?
Let's go to the beginning,
lost all the text,
because half these people have been watching so many videos online, so many different conflicting things. Let's start off with this so-called subject, the whole subject, Tartaria. Most people didn't speak about it. Nobody ever heard of it until a guy came along called Professor Anatoly Fomenko from Russia. Now, when he came along, what he did was he went through historical manuscripts and then he showed, hey, this is a lie and that's a lie. This is clearly a lie. They just said this and now they've said that. Now, what are historical manuscripts? All my books explain this. Skull and Bones especially goes through it. Yeah? It's most of the manuscripts we've got in Europe, almost more than 95%, more than this, were written by monks. Monks, all of them worked for churches, every single one. So that means the church wrote the history. Now, all the students who were monks, they were all taught to read and write in Latin, yes, during the Middle Ages. But then when you check through the history, all the history professors are going to tell you Latin died 1,500 years ago. So now what we've got is the church comes along in the Middle Ages, yeah, and about 1,000 years ago, and they're finding all these children, yeah, and sending them to school and teaching them Latin. Nobody else speaks Latin. It's same like imagine I'm sending people to my schools. I've opened my own schools, and I'm teaching everybody Vietnamese, not Vietnamese, Antarctican language.
Or a new
A language
language.
that nobody speaks, and now those people were taught to write in Latin. Now they wrote down all these manuscripts. Now all these students, they made mistakes of what to write because they opened up monasteries in churches here and there. The Jesuits were part of these groups, and all these other monks, Franciscans, whatever you want to call them. So they wrote everything. So now what we're talking about is, imagine it's Andreas, it's you speaking against the rest of the world. So now it's the church, one guy, the church and its boys wrote the full history of Europe. And then there were all these other books in Europe, and mysteriously they were all in Arabic. And nobody's asking why they were in Arabic. And they're telling us some crazy story. A bunch of guys came on their camels, from the deserts of Arabia, and they set up an international empire from east to west, north to south, and their language spread. And their books mysteriously ended up all throughout Europe. And their books were the majority by the Middle Ages until the church came along. That is the same like saying that from the deserts of Afghanistan, we're going to see people jumping up and down in camels, invading the whole of Europe and Asia and the Middle East and North Africa, and they're going to spread their language and their books, and they are going to be at the top of the world. Within 100 years, their empire is going to be from India to France.
And to call them barbarians, it's also interesting because you see.
Then you're crazy.
They're saying the barbarians are the people who don't speak Latin or Greek. So in other words, the barbers or the Tartars or the, again, the Etruscan language, they were saying was so hard to break down, but the letters were basically backwards. Well, exactly. You start to see Tartinian links into Slavic links, and we see there was a language there that was being used that they've erased, but it might be that Latin is backwards, literally backwards from Etruscan and from some Russian.
Tartaria. So Anatoly Fomenko goes through the manuscripts and he points out all the lies. Then he finds a mathematical pattern in the lies, and he puts down that mathematical pattern. But historians have condemned him and said, he's using astronomy. No, astronomy is just mathematics, and he just shows he's a mathematician. And he says, hey, look, these events are repeating themselves from nation to nation. They copied the history, and they just changed the names. So now, anybody who read Anatoly Fomenko between the year 2000 to 2010, many people all over the world started reading his things because the internet went around like fire. Then after that, this subject became bigger and bigger until eventually it became Tartaria in the last 5, 8, 10 years. And then slowly these people started doing videos in the last 5-10 years.
Well, there's also the Turkish too, because the pseudo-Turkology in the 19th century, they referred to pseudo-Turkology as Tartarism. And so in Istanbul, there was a huge movement that sort of sponsored the idea that Tartaria was this Turkish empire.
Okay, that's going down to the politics, but let's get down to what Anatoly Fomenko found.
Yeah.
Now, this is the most serious thing. Almost every Tartarian group that's in TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and people putting posts, everybody is ignoring the main fact that Anatoly Fomenko pointed out. Now, even you are going to have to question this. Anatoly Fomenko showed something so big that everybody's ignoring it. Everybody is ignoring it because the thing is, even in the Tartarian groups, nobody wants to talk about it. They're just going to put pictures on. Look at these amazing buildings. Oh, look, half the world is buried. Oh, there's something wrong here. We can see those technology here. We can see there's these lies here and there's lies there. Now, the thing is, Anatoly Fomenko pointed out something that's very big. And do you know what he pointed out? That the majority of the coins in Northern Europe before the 17th century are in Arabic writing. We got a problem here now. We're talking Northern Europe, Sweden, Norway, Germany, Poland, Ukraine, Russia, and Russia's so big. Yeah? So we're talking about all of that. He points out they've got Arabic coins. Then the next thing he pointed out, another thing is, he said, let's go through all the swords and the artifacts before the 17th century, because he showed they added on an estimated 1,000 years of fake history from the time of Jesus Christ, from the year 0 to about 1000 AD. That could be 1100 years, 900 years. It depends because they've messed around with it. But now
there was a good flamenco 19 thing I saw recently.
Yeah, I'll explain more about flamenco later because flamenco is also under political pressure. He's not one guy. He had a team of over 1,000 people. So we're not talking about one person here. This was a big organization that mysteriously brought out the lies in history. That means that they are challenging the people in the world order. But who is it that supported flamenco in this organization? Now, if you go through Wikipedia and other things, they accuse him of being a Russian nationalist. What sort of a Russian nationalist is going to be turning around and saying, hey, all the coins in Russia are in Arabic, or the majority?
Right.
Now, the next biggest thing, what he did was, he showed that before the 17th century, all the kings in Russia were basically Muslims. And he showed all their armory and their swords, not just them, but thousands of soldiers and everything. Like, for example, we've got museums in France, in Paris, in Germany, in Berlin, in New York. There's many museums, and the Moscow Kremlin Museum is probably in the top 20 most important museums around the world. And he went through that museum, and there's thousands of artifacts, and there's many other things. That museum and its linked departments and linked museums with it. And he went through all the swords, and he said, what's going on here? They've all got Arabic writing on, basically almost all of them. The swords, we're talking about normal soldiers, like imagine you and me joining the army, and we decorating our swords with verses of the Quran and things like that. Now, we've got a serious problem here because we've got the history of the Crusades and all the history of Europe, and we're talking about Russia, ruled half of Europe. Throughout history. So that means that the full history of Europe is a lie, and we cannot ignore that it was Arabic. But the silence, and I'm sure even after people hear this video and everything, there's going to be silence, or there's something suspicious going on. It's because it seemed like saying the United States, imagine that they're going to tell us that in the United States everybody spoke Chinese in 500 years' time. And then somebody discovers and says, hey, in the 20th century, all the coins were in English. All the car number plates, all the papers, all the books were in English. And Anatoly Fomenko pointed out, hey, everything's in Arabic. And he says even the churches had the Quran. And
if you go to California though, right, and they're going to let you take your driver's license test in any language you want, you're going to find forms in whatever language you
find
ask
other languages. Yeah, in England, we've got they've got the Indian alphabet in some places. I'm not talking about some places. We're talking about the majority of the coins. The majority. Not only that, we're talking about all the military armor of the Russian army is in Arabic. We're not talking about California. We're not talking about Siberia here, or in the middle of Russia, in the middle of nowhere. We're talking about right in the heart of the Kremlin. All the king's crowns, all their military armor, everything is in Arabic. I'm not joking. I've seen half of this myself. It's not just flamenco. I've seen this myself. So that's why even I cannot believe it. Yeah, go ahead.
In the Crusades, though, you would have had a number of different groups: the Cathars, the Bogomils, groups that were Alawites that were hiding Gnosticists that had. Islam was essentially a Gnostic sect, right? It continues on the Gnostic tradition of a non-Paulician group.
What I've done, the way I've written my books, that you will notice that, especially in the book Skull and Bones, that you can open up any history book about the Cathars. Almost all of them are going to use the words like Gnostics, dualists, and all these other words.
But often to hide Muslims, right? Because the Muslims were often just pretending to be a kind of Christian so that they could be.
But I'm going to make it simple for you now. Now, a major reason why history books are written in difficult words, like they use very difficult words like Gnostics, then somebody is going to have to open up the dictionary. The average person has never heard of the word Gnostics. Maybe you and I have done, so they've made it difficult. In my books, I've just put it down simply. The Cathars, they were burned, they were killed, yes, and then the church wrote their history. And even what the church wrote down, Yes, it's because so many different monks in different parts of Europe wrote it down. They couldn't hide the information because there was too much. They wrote down these people denied the crucifixion. That's one. They denied that Christ was the Son of God. That's two. They accepted Jesus Christ as a man of God, and they accepted the Torah. It sounds like Muslims. They accepted that he's not the Son of God. They accepted he was just a normal man like a prophet. There's no difference between them and Muslims. What is the difference? There isn't. So now it's historians who've labeled them as Gnostics. Same like today, historians have separated what is going on in the rest of the world. Like they created the nation states, like the British were in Egypt, the British were in Iraq, Syria. They created the borders. They created the title Iraqi. They created the title Syrian. They created the title Kurdish. These titles didn't exist. Yes, they didn't exist. So they created these things in the same way they've created Qatar. Yeah, they've created your title. Are you an American? Are you a Canadian? Are you was you born in America? Or are you a Latino American? They put you in these categories and they've created these titles. These men, the Cathars were simple humans. And then what they've wrote about them is saying they were devil worshippers and they had two gods, blah, blah, blah. There's no evidence of anything like that at all. Now I noticed that some people wrote something on YouTube, and they turned around and said he's looking at their documents. Okay, now if the world is turning around and saying yes, all these Tartary groups and people doing research, yeah, many of them are hypocrites. Hypocrisy. That they are turning around and saying history is a lie. We're going to look for history everywhere in the world except within Islamic documents such as the Muslim Quran. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. It's because the Muslims were in Spain, right next door to the Cathars. Why can't we listen to what they've got to say about the Cathars?
Well, they've had lots of Christians. Lots of Christians were living in Islamic caliphate, and they would have often tried to be Muslim in order and say you're a Muslim, so you don't have to pay taxes.
If they were Christians, right? Then why did the Catholic Church have inquisitions? Because they were not Christians in the sense of modern Christianity. They were Christians that they accepted Jesus Christ as a normal man, not the Son of God. That's why they were living within Muslim Spain. And then there's the false history saying that the Arabs invaded and took over that place. It's ridiculous because Morocco's population wasn't high enough, even at that time, according to official history. Yeah, it just sounds ridiculous. Yeah. So what
about the Manichaeans also? Because the Manichaeans were across, there's Muslims, Christians, but the Manichaeans were even bigger. St. Augustine was a Manichaean before he converted.
Right.
How many of them?
The thing is, if we're going to look at St. Augustine and the Manichaeans, then that means we've accepted the official history and Tartaria didn't exist. Because
you think so? You think Mani doesn't? Oh, go ahead.
Mani and St. Augustine, they wrote just towards the end of the Roman Empire. So that is the false history that they've given us.
I mean, their stories have been burned, and everything that we know about them is told by Christian heretics like Tertullian. So we don't really know
even
that much about
what we know about.
We know there were groups of people that worshipped these people, right?
Now the thing is, there is a big thing. There's many people who are posting in Tartary groups saying, "Look at this old map. Look at this old manuscript." Now, what we do know, you can check this yourself, that the letter J was not used in most Western alphabets until the 19th century.
Right.
Most people didn't use it. And it was only introduced in the 16th century by the Vatican officials or groups within the Vatican. Their boys, like Scaliger. So even it seemed like when they introduced passports after World War I, even today half the world doesn't have a passport. Half the Afghans have never heard of a passport. They don't know what one is, believe it or not. Not half, but less than that. They don't know what one is. They don't know where to make one. It's got... Yes. So the thing is, when they introduced the letter J, most people weren't using it. So now we got a problem. All these so-called manuscripts that they're telling us are before the 16th century, how can they have the letter J inside it? That means they were written after the 16th century. Yeah.
Right, and it becomes really obvious.
You see? See that now?
Of course, but I was looking at Josephus. And Josephus is
yeah.
clearly revisionist texts. But the thing is, Josephus is quoting again Manetho, and the Manetho is also all burnt. And when you start finding what Josephus you have, there are these parts which are, if you go through the generality of his prose.
Yeah, I read his books when I was at, especially the Jewish War.
Right.
He wrote about that.
But there's all these weird insertions into the Jewish War stuff where it talks about Jesus in these really weird ways, which don't sound like the rest of the text. It sounds like Gnostic or regular monks. It sounds like Jesuit monks rewrote Josephus, right?
Yeah.
So do you think Josephus was completely manipulated, or do you think it was completely created or just perverted?
Now the thing is this: anybody who looks at Fomenko's research will realize more than one person was involved.
Right.
Now, anybody who reads Josephus's books will realize they were not compiled by one person.
Absolutely.
More than 50 people were involved.
Yeah.
So Josephus as a person may not even exist. This is how much of a problem we have. So when you say there is insertions that people point out the insertions especially about Jesus Christ. So this is the type of problem that we've got. Even anybody who reads Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Right. I read them when I was age 14 or 15 when I first read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yeah, you can easily tell. You don't have to be smart. You can tell that this was not written by one person. Many, many people were involved. And there's many different versions of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Of course.
That's because there were so many different monks in many different places. And what they had to do was write a copy of Matthew or Mark or Luke and John for the nearest village. That's why we've got thousands of manuscripts.
And we're 6 generations, but then we're 6 generations beyond that, because you've got 100 years after Jesus. Then you've got the Erasmus translations, and by the time it gets to Shakespeare,
that's if you're sticking to the official timeline.
Right.
But the strange thing is the Crusades didn't start until 1,000 years after the so-called official dating of Jesus Christ. Now that's impossible, because in many of these so-called medieval documents, which are realistically 16th, 17th century, many of these medieval documents say that the Crusades took place after the 10th century because the people just woke up and found out that Jesus Christ had been murdered.
Right.
In the Middle East. But now if they did the Crusades 1,000 years after Jesus Christ died, I think the first Crusade was in 1095. I've forgotten the date. Something like that. Now the strange thing is, how come they were asleep for 1,000 years? The Christians forgot that Jesus Christ suddenly got killed, and the first crusade happened 1,000 years later.
Right.
It's so strange. Don't you think that's strange? It seemed like saying Donald Trump has just been assassinated, and all these Donald Trump supporters, 1,000 years later, they wake up and say, hey, Donald Trump's just been assassinated in Russia. Well, let's go and invade Russia 1,000 years later.
We can look at our own contemporary history and see how this works. It takes a few generations to confuse and forget.
1,000 years?
Maybe years? No, probably more like 200 years or 100. 95, I think, is perfect. 95 after Christ. That sounds about right.
But the first crusade is 1,000 years later.
Well, again, we know the J is supposed to mean in the year of our Lord, right? So it's really in the year of our Lord, 95. It's the whole Fomenko thing even goes back from before Fomenko. Yeah, people were saying this in the 1700s.
All these people who are pointing out all these coins that have the letter J, there is another problem with that, because the letter J was not introduced until after the 16th century.
Also, because J comes from an Arabic origin as well. I mean, it was probably used by other cultures that somehow made their way in through the Franks who were in Africa, and so that ties it back into that Alexandrian thing, that there could have been introductions of, these people went to Alexandria for school. Archimedes went to school in a place, and then he comes back with the letter.
Okay. Now we've got a serious problem with this.
Okay.
Yeah. The library in Alexandria, they can't prove it to exist.
Okay.
The so-called Greek libraries. In my book, Ancient Greece, I've shown evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. The biggest ancient Greek library was not Alexandria, according to historians. They say is the library of Celsus in the city of Ephesus, and they say that St. Paul was in Ephesus. Now, the strangest thing is, anybody who looks at photographs of Ephesus city from 100 years ago and compares them today, is going to think, oh my God, this place is a scam. We can't find Ephesus or the Library of Celsus. They've totally just built everything new. And they said there was a place called Celsus here, and the ancient Greek library was here. And then books from there got copied. And the copies were in Alexandria, people who copied.
But Celsus is in Turkey. So if they did this in the 19th century, these would have been pseudo-Turkologists and Tartarianists. Would that mean that they were trying to fabricate evidence for Tartarian?
Actually, it's not even them. That you can check through the full history of Ephesus, and you can start not just Ephesus, but looking at entire Middle Eastern and Mediterranean archaeology, and look through the archives of Gertrude Bell.
I mean, the letter,
a British diplomat.
the letter in the Bible, Paul has a letter to the Ephesians. Is that not of Ephesus? Isn't that the group of Selçuk in the Aegean region of Turkey?
Who said these letters are true anyway?
I completely question that, absolutely. But if that's the town that is in question, it's very interesting that the Bible talks about Ephesus.
But it's not just that St. Paul is supposed to have been.
Right.
He's supposed to be there.
Right.
That's what they're telling us in history.
Yeah, in Turkey.
Paul was there, and not only that, John, who wrote the Apocalypse, yes, and who wrote, they say he wrote the book of John as well, that he was in an island just beside Ephesus, and that they're not sure, but he probably went to Ephesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're saying they're not sure if he went there or not, because now many people already know that Ephesus is a scam. Now, if there is no Ephesus, then there is no library in Alexandria.
Well, I don't know about that. So you're saying you don't think that in North Egypt, above Luxor, in the areas that we consider to be even On or Heliopolis that eventually became Alexandria, you're saying that region was never a center
now
of information?
I'm going to make it very easy for you.
Okay.
I'm sending you Ephesus, yes, where most of these Greek manuscripts originally were.
Right, Library of Celsus, yeah.
Go back to the original. It's same like saying, when you're talking about ancient Egypt, because historians are saying Egypt is a different nation. So it's same like saying, hey, these books are American, but there was a library in Shanghai, and the Chinese had these Americana books. So now let's look at Ephesus City. I'm sending you the pictures so that you can share them, and so that people will have no doubt.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay, so we're looking at a theater coliseum with
yes.
It looks like a walk-in with
anyway,
poles,
they're saying that
pillars,
the Greeks
and it's
and
been
the Romans
demolished.
or whoever built it. Yeah, and now I'm sending you. And
it's built into the side of a mountain or a pyramid? Is it a
I'm
pyramid
sending
or a
you
mountain it's
photographs
built
of the
into?
same place 100 years ago. There's no theatre there,
Okay.
and then.
Right,
I'm sending it you proper clearly, because these people who built this fraudulently in the 20th century, they took souvenir photographs. That I've sent you another photograph that you that you can actually see that there is no theatre there whatsoever, and no city of Ephesus there whatsoever.
So did they claim at least that they were rebuilding, restoring something that had been demolished? Anything?
They're saying all kinds of stories. All kinds of stories. But let me send you all the construction photographs, because it's a joke.
Yeah,
now we've got a problem.
Yeah. But I've seen this happen a number of times though, like in Spain.
This problem of all these so-called Greek philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, blah blah blah, and everything else. We have a serious problem. And then it looks like.
I think the biggest problem is restorationists, because they seem to be completely destroying the ruins. No, but that's the problem. Restoration is completely inventing something new.
Now,
this is not even what's there.
Now, many people, historians know that people find this. So that's why they claim, no, this is restoration.
Oh man, look at these guys building it. You've got all these pictures of them with shovels.
Because guess what? That mountain and that place there was a mining site for marble. And then let me show you, yes, how people did mining in the 1920s and 30s. I'm sending you a similar place where they did mining in Tonkin mine in Vietnam.
Wow. And it's making these making a step pyramid.
Yes, but wait, the next one, the first photo is they are claiming it's restoration. No, they built it. And then the second photo is comparing it to a mine in Vietnam at the same time in the other side of the world. I've sent you another photo. Look at Tonkin Mine in Vietnam. Have you found it? Yeah. So now I'm showing you from the old photographs that you will find the entrance to the mine. Yes? The entrance to the mine that they did mining there. Yes? Wait, no, all these 19th century and early 20th century mines had the same entrances, even in England or France or Germany. Wait, I'm sending you more. This is in my book, Ancient Greece. I recommend. Yeah. Wait, this is in my book, Ancient Greece. Yes. So the thing is, I went through this myself totally, and so now when you go there, when you go to Ephesus today, this is what you will see when you're walking through the main city. Now have a look at it. The city of the library.
Wow.
And this is where dear St. Paul was walking and preaching. And he was bringing people to the Son of God to make them believe in the crucifixion. I've just sent you a picture. I've just sent you a picture of Ephesus city, the main city. Have a look at it. Have you found it?
Yeah.
Have you found
Yeah, absolutely. Right, with the pillars everywhere.
Okay,
just
now
a bunch
I'm
of
sending
pillars
you
and
the
nothing
same
else.
place. I'm sending you
Tourists
the same place
everywhere.
100 years ago. It's got the remains of mining houses, yes, temporary mining homes that you will find them in England. I'm in Manchester, and you can find them all over the suburbs of Manchester, those same bricks with the same things. Yeah, wait, let me send you an...
This is crazy because I just did a video recently on Jehovah Canaanite Vulcan origins, because there's the Jov god of the Canaanites, which is a metallurgical god associated with mining. And if you go across all the sites, a lot of the tombs I was finding associated with emerald mines and with copper mines. And it was just mines,
I'll explain why that is in a little while. Now have a look. I'm sending you an example of a similar mine for a similar item in England this time. Have a look at that new picture, and you will see it's exactly
when is this supposed to be built from?
That in England,
this picture is like with the smokestack picture from Britain you just sent me, the Cornish engine house. When is that supposed to be?
Yeah, it says it. It says it under the picture. If you enlarge the picture in black and white is Ephesus, and the one above it is what Ephesus looks like today. So actually, the full details are inside my book called Ancient Greece.
So just to be clear, so you're saying that the Cornwall mining area, they added a smokestack later, that it wasn't there when they found it, is the point, or?
No. What I'm compare the pictures, right? Go back to.
They've torn down a lot of the old area from the Dartmoor Trust archive. Is that correct? They've torn down a bunch of the building.
No. Right. Go back to the fourth picture up. Now that picture is Ephesus Square. As you can see, tourists are walking there. Yes, that's what it looks like today. Then the next picture in black and white is the same place 100 years ago. There is nothing there, just the remains of mining. But they're going to tell you those bricks there are, 2,000, 3,000 years old.
What about the two pictures after?
Remains. But now the last two pictures that I've sent you are pictures from 100 years ago of remains of mining in Europe, in England. And you can see they're exactly the same, because they were building the same things in England for the purpose of mining. So now let's go to the next picture, and here is the actual construction photos of every single block in Ephesus. That they built every single thing. They built, and many of the things, statues, everything, and they're saying these are ancient Greek statues. They carved everything, and they brought everything on mini train tram lines. And you can check everything. Everything's brand new. But still they're going to insist, no, we found these blocks on the floor here. They didn't find anything. The place has got nothing there in the photographs 100 years ago. So now we've got a problem. That's Ephesus. So now if you want, do you want to go to Athens? Then you'll question Alexandria. It's like, because if people don't look at these things, then they are never going to understand, Alexandria. There was no library in Alexandria. There's no proof of anything to do with ancient Greece at all. Now, here is a picture.
Well, wait, if there's not a library of Alexandria, that doesn't mean there's not a library, right? Or are you saying, because this is the question, is the city itself, does it have anything of value even before the Hellenistic period? Is the Hellenistic period covering something up, or is it nothing there?
It seemed like me claiming that right now there is a library, a Nigerian or Zimbabwe library in Antarctica. And it's got so many books with world history. I've wrote it down, I can tell people.
But could the library, could the
Africans went there
could the Greeks have been
2,000 years
talking
ago.
about somebody else's library, saying, "Hey, in Africa, in Kemet, there is a Thoth Emerald Tablets library."
What ancient Greek documents do we have? Ancient Greek language died out 3,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, or 1,500 years ago. And then they're saying we've got all these New Testaments in Greek that we can't find any of them older than 500 years. They can't even prove the dating.
But we are finding more and more documents from Africa.
Do you know what it's like saying? I'll tell you how crazy this is. It's same like saying, let's find out the history of Donald Trump. All the books about Donald Trump in 2,000 years' time, every single one is written in Chinese. And do you know what they say in history? They say the Greeks were the enemies of the Jews and this one God system. But no, all the Gospels were written in Greek and then in Latin. But then we got a serious problem. We got a serious problem there. It's same like saying all the books about Donald Trump are written in Chinese.
But
in 2,000 years' time, and people are saying, "Oh, this is the truth about Donald Trump." Yes, they're all in Chinese.
But we're finding more books, right? So in Africa, like
where are the books they're finding?
In Africa,
the books Nag Hammadi scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls.
No. I mean more modern. Like so, Tariq al-Fatash, for instance, like the original works of Al-Hajj Mahmud Khati, different books from the Songhai Empire, which arguably, when the British Crown made deals with Morocco and tried to destroy the Songhai Empire, it was destroyed in the 1600s. And so many of these people in Africa started hiding their scrolls from the Timbuktu libraries.
We've got another problem there, because there's all these people who are saying there's 1,000 years of fake history added on. So then we've got a new problem. Yes, the so-called British Empire in the 16th century could not have existed. If people are going to talk about the concept of Tartaria
400 years ago
is a lie, then that means they can't accept that official timeline. So
regardless, the Flamenco timeline's not changed. If you're saying 400 years ago, the naval empires of the Dutch East Indies and the British Crown,
the
separated.
Naval empires. Okay, yeah. I want you to build me 400 ships. Let's see if you can do it. 400, 500 ships made out of wood, and send them as an army to invade India. Let's see if you can do it. Let's see. How long is it going to take you? The story sounds like a joke. And it seemed like, I've got people, they call them Afrocentrics, but they got a serious point saying, hey, they are telling us it took 2 months to cross the Atlantic on average with wooden ships, and they're telling us that they had African slaves, hundreds of them, in these wooden ships, all tied up and chained up. How did these slaves eat? How did they do toilet? How could they eat with their hands tied up? If they had their hands untied, they'd be beating up the people who took them as slaves.
It's a 2 to 3 hour boat ride from Spain, South Spain, into Morocco. It's not really a very far distance, and even just island hopping down the coast. The idea that there were
when you're
powers.
saying that the British made a deal, where is the evidence of a British Empire? It's like we've got a problem here right now. Do you know why? Because they're telling us that the British had deals with the Russians. But then we can't find the Russians because we've got all these swords and everything else that are in Arabic, and they're in Arabic. So that means the history of the British interacting with Russia. We got a problem there. In the same way, I've just shown you the Library of Celsus. We got a problem.
I agree with you. The British and the Vatican as well have changed history. But what I mean to say is that the people who were conquered and in this period in Africa, where we have all of these manuscripts, and then we have these stories of libraries in Africa, universities in Africa, things in Timbuktu, in Timbuktu. All over the.
Well, let's put it this way. Yes, I've been going to Africa for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years ago, nobody's ever heard of these so-called manuscripts written in Arabic, in Timbuktu. Now, many of these so-called manuscripts, with their history, agrees over 80% with the official historical timeline. And the only difference is they make their history sound greater. In the same way that you can go to any other country in the world, they've got the same official history, 80% the same with a 20% difference. Yeah, the Timbuktu libraries and most of their Arabic manuscripts are forgeries. There's no evidence.
Not all of them are Arabic, right? Like, so the idea that there were Tuaregs there, and again, Tuareg, it seems connected to the Bedouin and the Tartarian Berber group.
Now the thing is, when people are saying Tartaria, yes, or when you're saying Tari or Turkey, like for example, in the Balkans, Serbski means Serbs, people, ka or ki, Polska, Polishka, Turka or Turska, yes? So that basically means Mosca. Ka means house or people or nation, things like that. So when you say Torka, it means the house of the Torah. The Torah? Moses. Yes. Mediterranean, Meditora. Tartaria. Yes. That's a word that the Western Europeans used. Yeah. Now the thing is on the Tartarian flags, all these people are pointing out the Tartarian flags have got birds on them, or eagles, or many other things, and they're saying, hey, look at these eagles on flags and birds on flags. But once again, all these people who are pointing it out, many of them are hypocrites. I've never said this before, but today I'm saying it. Do you know why? Because they're going to point out the flag, but then they're not going to check the currency of that nation. They're not going to check what the language was there and the language changes. And then there's a simple answer to it. The Quran actually says that in the previous civilization, humans actually spoke to birds and eagles, birds. So that's why they were special. And that's why many of the traditional European dances, people have their hands out or their arms out, like in Serbia and Croatia, and then they link together with their soldiers, dancing with their legs up and down, and they try to do the movement of birds, things like that. Those traditions came, and they're written in the Quran. So the Quran has a totally different history. So if people are going to question and say, hey, I found mistakes or lies in the history that we're being told, then why won't they look at the other side? Now, I'm not talking about just Russia. We're talking about, hey, Northern Europe has got all these Arabic coins. Why is nobody going to question or have a look at them? Now, it's not just that. The oldest coins that they found in the United States, look at this pathetic story that they're telling us. The oldest coins that they found in the United States, in many different places, are Arabic coins in the United States. And then they're telling us some crazy story that there were some pirates on wooden ships, yeah, that were all the way near Yemen somewhere, or near the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Sea, and they stole these coins, and then they went by ship past South Africa, near there, before they got to South Africa, past Zanzibar, past South Africa. Then the wooden ships went all the way around, past Angola, past Nigeria, past that way, past through Morocco, maybe stopped on the way to Europe, and then afterwards they ended up in the United States. But in those days there were no roads, no nothing, and then they got off the ships and they went around dropping coins in 4 or 5 different places in the United States, Arabic coins. This is what they're telling us. And then there's all these people, like, it's just natural to turn around and think, hey, we know that something's wrong. Half these cities are blown up or destroyed in the United States. Let's see if they've found any coins. Let's have a look at the coins. We know that the letter J was introduced recently. So any coins that have the letter J mean on it, on the dating, means, hey, they were made later. Now, any coins that just have the simple letter I, they're more of an original. But now we got another problem. The majority of the population of Europe actually lived in Eastern Europe. That you can even check this, that Eastern Europe, starting from East Germany all the way to Siberia, probably grows about half the world's grain. Half we're talking about in that region, Eastern Europe. So it means it's the land where you can grow food. Now, another thing you will notice is that the Russian Imperial Army, the Romanovs, the fake Romanovs who took over after the 18th century, went around kidnapping children, and then they were exporting them to France, England, America, everywhere, through the British and the French empires. Now, the thing is, they depopulated Eastern Europe. But the thing is, if these people came from Eastern Europe and today they're in the United States, and their descendants have found out, hey, all these cities in America got blown up, why aren't they checking the coins? It's natural to see, hey, let's check. Now, anybody who's researching Tartaria, I'll give you advice. Any photograph that you find, please look for the photographs from the year 1900, 1880. Now, another thing what to do is for every different location, let's say you want to check out Iran, or Pakistan, or let's say Korea, then translate it and then check it under that language. Then it will be easier to find the photographs. Now, as you've mentioned Alexandria, this is so serious that I sent you another photograph of the Acropolis in Egypt, in Athens. Have a look at that. That photograph is from 1860. It's because you spoke about Alexandria, and the thing is, let's have a look. Did ancient Greece even exist? Now, I've sent you the Acropolis in 1860. And then I've sent you a picture from Ukraine and in the Donbass region. And those are artificial mountains of mining. And you can compare it to the Acropolis. Yes. Mining. Mining 1860. But wait, there's more. I've only sent you 2 photographs. Let me finish it so that you can have a proper look. More photographs from 1860. Yes. And the thing is, nobody is asking questions. Who the hell were these people who mysteriously had cameras there in Athens in 1860? And I'm going to compare it to a mining site in England now. Not just the Donbass. I sent you one to the Donbass. It's exactly the same. And then another picture from, let's say, from England, a mining site in England, and the mountains and the hills are exactly the same. Then I'm going to send you the first photograph of the Acropolis from 1839. Yes, and they're talking about ancient Greece. Yes, and just when the photograph was taken, there was a battle there between European armies, Germans, French, British, Italians, and they call it the Greek resistance. But it was actually British, German, French, their guns and their people. Now, inside the Acropolis, what we find is a mosque in 1839. Now, the next thing is I'll send you all the photographs of the Acropolis. It's suspicious, and you will notice that it was a mining site in the 19th century. Then I've sent you a photograph from 1841, and you will see a scaffolding there, and there is a tower there. They claim that's a Frankish tower, and then I'll show you what the Frankish tower is in a bit. Now, the photographs from 1841 to 1842, you can see the mosque was demolished, but what you will also see is that there's a scaffolding there to support this Acropolis, that we don't know who built the Acropolis. Then, when you have a look at photographs that I'm sending you from 1890, around there, now at the bottom of the Acropolis, that you can still go there today, you'll notice that there's all these arches. Now, let me show you the Frankish tower before the arches. There's no tower by the year 1910. Now, the tower, if you compare the masonry of that tower at the Acropolis, and I'm comparing it to a mining engine house in the United Kingdom from the 19th century. Yes, there's hundreds of these mining towers all over the world. Yes, they've got the exact same masonry and the exact same layout. Have you had a look at the Frankish tower? The tower that's on the Acropolis. Yeah, and it's exactly the same. Now, the next thing is, I did a proper examination of the Acropolis. I went there myself, and I went to these mining sites in England. Now let's have a look at they call it Stoa Dioumenes. Yes, in Greek. Yeah, that you'll see these arches there. Now, the strange thing about these arches, yeah, is let me show you the arches. Magnified so that you could put them on the videos, because people think ancient Greek existed. The Acropolis is the main evidence, the heart of ancient Greece. The main writers came from there, Plato, Aristotle, they were all there in Athens. Now I'm showing you the same place from 100 years ago. And as you can see, the mining, and you will see that the mining came down, and it came down to the Stoa Dioumenes, like a wall. and the wall was a barrier. And what you will notice, I'm comparing it to a place now called Rosedale in England from the 19th century. You'll find hundreds of these places around the world. In the United States, there's hundreds of them. Yeah, in the United States, what you will see is a wall with the same arches, with the same masonry, with towers in mining places, so that when they did the mining, yes, the mining comes to the bottom, yes, and when it comes to the bottom, the workers process it there. Now, I sent you that one's Rosedale in England, and here's another one. This one's in Devon. Let me send you them in the United States. What are they going to say? It's another Acropolis, ancient Greece in the United States. Yeah, Ohio. That next, the picture I've just sent you there is from Ohio, USA in the 19th century. I'll write it down so that we don't get mistaken. You'll find them everywhere. Now, this is one from Pennsylvania. Now, you'll say there's different shapes of the arches. Yes, but there's so many of them at the bottom of these hills. Yes, all over the world with these towers. Now, I'll send you photographs from the late 19th century and the early 20th century, what they did inside these arches. Yeah, how they processed the mining. Can you see it? Yes. Wow. The Acropolis was a mining site, and they just
they're pulling out rock and they're smashing it and they're melting
yes,
it
and burning it and processing it. Yes, right. I've shown you so many of them. So now the thing is, I'm comparing it to Fort Canyon in the United States. You know that the mining waste, when it drops, you can actually compare it all and see everything. Like I've had a deep look at it, and let's look at the Odeon Theatre, a famous name for all these cinemas today. The Odeon Theatre, Athens, the ancient Greeks, they existed. Yes. Now here is the Odeon Theatre. Now I've just sent you that picture, and let's show you the same place. You know, in the 1860s, and you'll notice that the Odeon Theatre is a total fabrication, a false thing. There's no evidence for it. They just constructed it out of nowhere.
Wow, it's completely nothing. It's crazy. There's nothing there. Even the hill has to be flattened. There's they literally had to flatten the hill.
I'm sending you more photographs so that you can have a look at it. There's no Odeon.
That's not just reconstruction. That's straight up flattening an area and making it into a new thing.
As you can see, yes. Now let me show you about Athens. Now this is the worst thing. This is going to shock you. Yes. Here is not far from there is the Theatre of Dionysus. Now the same place in as you can see, Athens is a big city today. Millions of people. Now this is in my book, Ancient Greece, that anybody can check it themselves. Ancient Greece didn't exist, and in the book, Ancient Egypt didn't exist. Now the same place, let me send you old photographs that you can check these photographs in 1900. There's nobody there. And then what happens is that from the mining settlement, after they kicked out the Turks, the mining settlement and the British, French, German mining companies, they came and they built a few buildings, and the old buildings are what the Turks left behind. But as you can see, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Nobody lives there. Hardly anybody. So as you can see, it's a joke. And now let's go to one of the most famous temples of the Greeks, the Greek Temple of Artemis. Yeah, the Greek Temple of Artemis is one of the best preserved because they say it was buried. Yes, this is what the place looks like today. And what you'll notice is that the pillars have got colouring. It looks dark and black because of the rains, sleet, and snow. Now I'm showing you the same place. Let me show you the same place around 100 years ago. When they say, we just found this place, the French, the Germans, the British, and the Italians said, we just found it. Nothing to do with Turkish nationalists. It was the so-called Western archaeologists. They just said, and including people from the United States, from so-called institutions. They say, we just found it. And look at these photographs carefully. That what they found, you'll find so suspicious. I don't know if you've received that photo. I'll send it again. Yeah, have you received it?
Yeah.
Yes. Underground, there's railway lines.
I can't believe it.
You see those mini railway lines that they used for construction. Not a big railway line. There's mini railway lines.
The Indiana Jones mining cart railroad lines.
Yes, it's the mining cart railroad, and then they turn around and say, this is what the place looked like when they found it, and they said it was buried, and this is what it originally looked like. And then do you know what you'll notice? All the soil, all the mud there, the soil is brand new and it's fresh. They just buried it, and they're saying, but nobody really thinks about it and thinks. And then do you know what the worst thing is? By accident, they took photographs of burying the place. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I noticed this myself. Yeah, I thought, what the hell? I've just found photographs of them burying the place. Yeah, that they're burying the place, and they're telling us ancient Greek existed. So now we can't find Athens. We can't find Ephesus. They were the two biggest cities in Greece. Athens, then Ephesus, the two biggest Greek cities in the world. All the other places like Crete, Sparta, they were small. So how can there be a library in Alexandria with Greek books if we can't find ancient Greece? Yes.
Man.
Do you see what I'm getting at now?
I still think the idea that the ancient Greeks stole something that was already there and then.
No, that's good. You still think they exist?
Well, I don't know if the Greek. What would you call them? What do you call the group of guys who changed all the?
Okay, now.
What do you call the people who changed all the writings and made up all the names and made up all the stories?
Okay, now I'm going to make it more easy for you. I noticed that there were many comments in the previous video that I did who turned around and said, "Hey." One person said he didn't mention the Jesuits, but then another person said he did. It's because we're having a conversation.
Yeah, we can always talk about the Jesuits. It's totally worth it to bring the Jesuits up.
No, an example. This is an example. So now the thing is, what I'm saying is, if people are saying they want to know the full information, I can't read out a book that I've written in a 1 hour, 2 hour conversation. If they want the full information about ancient Greece, I showed you 2 sites. I
mean, both of these sites you have Jesuit archaeologists, you have Tara Chardin in Peking, and you have Jesuit archaeologists making things up as possible.
The bottom line of ancient Greece, to show that it didn't exist, people are welcome to read my book called Ancient Greece. Yes, and the book called Ancient Egypt, because then they can see all the photographs of the construction and everything, and they can see it themselves.
So what do you picture the world was like at this time then? I mean, are you saying that
now the thing is there
were not temples there?
Now this is the thing. People are turning. What we've got is one version of history. Yes, that all the manuscripts, more than 95%, were written by the church and its boys. Yes, now were written by one person. So we've got a problem here. Now, if somebody's going to turn around and say, "Hey, I just made that up," yes.
Is 100% of it made up by them, or is like 10%, or is 90%? It changes everything.
Right, there's other percents, but we're talking about no one's going to have a look at the Quran or these Arabic books anyway. The majority, I mean. The majority.
It's interesting. The Quran does say that Allah turned men into pigs.
And advanced before.
And it turned men into pigs when they stopped following the law.
Right. Now I've just sent you, from university libraries, people can check for it themselves, that the majority of the church had a monopoly. This means I'm saying my guess is the church controlled 95%, but official historians say that the church had more than 99% control over the manuscripts and who wrote the manuscripts and what they wrote inside them.
Very Soviet time.
So they are saying the church had a monopoly, almost a monopoly. So don't take my word for it. I'm saying 95% of the information is from them. But historians from universities in France, Germany, United States, Canada are saying no, it's 99% plus. So we're talking almost everything was written by them, and they have told you that ancient Greek existed. So now they're saying, if you say, where is the proof? I've just shown you Celsus, Ephesus, and I've shown you Athens. And then even after all of that I've just shown you that these places were mining sites. They're turning us around and saying, we found all these coins and all these other things. Now, I'm just going to show you this thing. This is going to make you laugh your trolley off. That you're going to turn around and think this is a joke, but let me see if I can find it. It's going to totally make you think it's just a joke. Wait, I can't find it. I thought I saved it. Sorry. It was to do with the fraudulent thing that they're burying that place, that they're burying this place in Greece. What's it called now? In Sardis. That temple that I've sent you. But the strange thing is, think about it. What are these railway tracks doing underground? They just said, we've just found this place, we're digging it out. And they brought the world's press saying, here, take photographs. We've just found it, ancient Greece. We've just found this temple.
It seems crazy. I mean, the idea that so much of this history, which we know is falsified, we can deal with that. But that some of these places had, I mean, we have to wonder, if it's a mining site, does that mean that before that there was a city that looked like New York City? Or was it just a blank slate and these were cave people? And that's the real question. If people were thinking that this was nothing there, or was there something there?
Do you know what to do? Invite people from your city to go and build houses and live on mining land and see if it's secure and stable.
Right.
Yes. That answers your question. Yes. That answers your question. Now, the thing is, the Acropolis Mountain, where they're saying Plato, Aristotle, and the rest of them, yeah, we could see that place was empty. And it took 100 years to actually build Athens city. That you can check the old photographs and you can see it yourself, that there's something wrong here. I've just sent you the two main things. If we can't find ancient Greece, how can we say that there was this library in Alexandria? If we can't find ancient Greece, then ancient Rome invaded Greece. We got a serious problem here right now. Oh, the Romans were in Ephesus. Ephesus was the second biggest city in the Roman Empire. But we can't find it. I've just shown you it's a forgery. I've shown you that the theatre, everything is a forgery. I've shown you it's a mining site.
And they even say that it's built,
Yes.
they said, Alexander says it's built on top of the ruins of the old kingdom. So it's even supposed to be, it was abandoned for 1,000 years, according to mainstream history, in between ancient Egypt and Alexandria. So I gotta wonder more about this whole idea. If this whole area was just a mining site, but it does show, you have to wonder: is a mining site without homes, without a community? Is this a Canaanite labor zone?
Well, the
with
thing
temples?
is, go to mining. I'm in Manchester. There's mining sites.
Yeah,
just
Manchester's
outside,
a community. You guys have
Manchester.
Stoke-on-Trent. Nice clothes.
Yeah, I'm saying, but if you just go to the nearest mountain sites, they're still there from the 19th century. People don't actually live on the
True.
mining site itself normally. Yeah, so that's that. So the thing is, well, anyway, most of these ancient sites are forgeries. Yeah, so the thing is, ancient Greece, we can't find it, and in the same way, ancient America, ancient Egypt, we can't find it. In my book, Ancient Egypt, I gave you that
Right.
last year. You could post these with this interview, all the photographs that I've given you. Here's Chichen Itza, and you can find the construction photographs of Chichen Itza. In the last 100 years, they built it. So,
Well, it's also
all these things.
It's also interesting because, again, with the Fomenko timeline, and you start to look at even mainstream timeline, and they place Moses right on top of Akhenaten. It's like literally according to mainstream that they're the exact same time, that they're doing the exact same thing, creating a monotheistic, unitheistic cult in Egypt.
Yeah. And the thing is, now that you've mentioned Moses and Akhenaten, yeah, I'm
let's get
sending
into
you the most preserved temple and the most important part of history of ancient Egypt, or the most famous, is Tutankhamun.
Right,
Everybody's heard of
yeah,
that
King
guy.
Tut.
Yeah. So now the place where he's buried, I've just sent you a photograph of the temple of Queen Hatshepsut. Yeah, that's what they call her. Sounds like a fake name they've made up. Now, I've sent you that temple today, and you can find photographs of the same place at 1880, 1890, 1900. There's nothing there, and it's a mining site with a mining tower.
Wow. Yeah, there it is.
Yes. Yeah, the mining tower is there, and then not only that, you could the people who built the place, they took souvenir photographs of themselves constructing the temple, which is ridiculous because they should have been careful to hide them. But of course, in the future, we're talking about after they did it, some other people came along and said, "Hey, let's release and sell these photographs to the world." So there's always people there out to make money who are going to grasp people up.
Wow. Yeah, there it is.
So as you can see, yeah, so now you've got a problem. So never mind the library in Alexandria, we can't even find ancient Egypt. I've just shown you that the most important temple, Queen Hatshepsut and her navy that went to the land of Ophir or wherever, and this temple's in the Valley of the Kings where they found Tutankhamun.
So, we can't find evidence of Moses either. So what does that say about both stories? Are they based on another guy or nothing?
So now there is a big difference. There is a big difference because the thing is, you're talking about Western history. So now, if we focus on Western history from the side that all these Tartarian groups and everybody is focusing, we can't find ancient Egypt. We can't find ancient Greece. So my books show hundreds of pictures showing that all these things are forgeries and lies. Now, the thing is, that's in Western history. But nobody is going to have a look at the opposition or the enemy. So let's go and see what their history books say. Yes, and their history books say a totally different story for Moses. Yes. So now the thing is what Fomenko did. Fomenko pointed out that the history of Jesus Christ and Moses in the Quran is different. Yes, the Bible says there's a 1900-year difference between Moses and Jesus Christ, but the Quran says that what's her name? The Virgin Mary. Yeah, that the Virgin Mary is the sister of Aaron, and Aaron lived at the time of Moses. Now, even if that's saying it as a symbolic name, it means they lived around the same era or within a few generations. So now we got a problem because according to the Bible and Western history, we're talking about 1900 years or 2000 years. So Fomenko,
well, I mean we're familiar with the Fomenko, but then at the end of the day, isn't that the solution? Because we're seeing then, the story in the Bible, the way most people believe it, is this guy's raised in Egypt by Egyptians, and he spent his whole life with Egyptians who think he's Egyptian, meaning he looks Egyptian enough that they can deal with him, and also he hasn't spent very much time with his family, his traditional Jewish family, so he knows more Egyptian things than he knows Jewish things. I mean, it seems like you've got a perfect correlation there between
if you've got a perfect
Aram
correlation, if you're going to focus on the story, I just sent you the temple of Hatshepsut, and they're probably going to say that Hebrew slaves built that place. Where is this temple?
What they do say, which is crazy again, is that the Semitics were mining groups and that they had all these mines. You go to Yuya, who's supposed to be Joseph to some people. Yuya is the father of Amenhotep the third, I believe, or he's the father-in-law.
Okay, so
and his whole area is a copper mine.
Andreas, where did you get that information from about Yuya, his father-in-law? Where did you find that story?
It's funny. There's like a few different versions of it, but Joseph Smith
where did you
has
find
a whole thing because Joseph Smith bought a bunch of mummies.
Okay,
and so
where
he
did
said
you find
that
this?
these were.
Where did you find it? I'll answer that question for you very easily. I'll tell you where you found it. You found it in temples like Hatshepsut's temple, and it's written on the walls, these stories of these so-called kings. But now we've got a problem.
Well,
these temples
also
are not even there 100 years ago.
So you have his Joseph Smith's papyri, right? And so Joseph Smith had this piece of papyri. He bought a 20-foot scroll along with 4 to 7 mummies. And the Skull and Bones got a few of the skulls of the mummies. And they burned the scroll in the Chicago Museum.
Let's go back to Moses.
And we weren't able to find everything there.
Smith. Let's go back to Moses and Yuya and the story of Akhenaten.
He said he had the mummies that were robbed from the tomb of Yuya.
Okay,
and that was
before we get to that, let's get back to this story now. How do we know a pharaoh called Akhenaten existed? The excavations at Tel El Amarna. I've even seen the videos of the excavations and the men who did the excavations, the British Army officers. Yes, it was a military expedition, and in the videos you can see they've got slaves just 100 years ago, that they're beating them up.
Right.
Imagine I grip you and a few of your buddies and your kids and your women, and I start beating them with belts and rods. That's on the video. Yeah, this is what they were doing.
Right.
And then the thing
And
is,
that's only a video because then you have France before that, and they were
but
doing
now we've got a
worse.
problem.
Right.
So you've mentioned Akhenaten and all these people. You can go on saying Ramesses, Hatshepsut, Cleopatra. All these stories are written in hieroglyphics. But now we've got a problem. They're telling us that these stories are inside these temples. For example, I just sent you that temple of Hatshepsut. But that temple in the photographs from 1880 is not even there. And we can see them building it. So that means that after they built it, they wrote the hieroglyphics inside in the 1930s and 40s and the 1920s.
But not every. Okay, we agreed that like the Akhenaten temple at Amarna is refabricated. You've got all these stones that they've put together, and they've said, "Oh, we found these stones,
So
and we
it's not
luckily
it's
found
not
these
just the
stones."
The temple has got hieroglyphics.
Right.
These stories of the Egyptian
Right.
pharaohs are inside.
But then there are
the
also
temple's
these
not
books
there,
by.
Then the art isn't there. They built the temple,
But-
you can see the construction in the 20th century. Then they drew these hieroglyphics on it, and then they're telling us this is old, and then they're telling us, hey, this is an original story. But the temple's not there in the photographs of the 1880s. So Andreas,
But
we
what
can't
about
find
the-
these
what-
Egyptian stories now. So all these Egyptian
But what we do
myths,
have
can't
people
verify them.
accusing.
Huh?
We do have accusations of the church saying, "Oh man, these guys are crazy. They believe in this," and all we have left is the citation of why Manetho was bad, why Osarseph was a horrible priest, why these Egyptians were wrong. I mean, but at the end of the day, that's kind of saying habeas corpus that they existed, because why else would you write about how they were evil, even though they were just historians at the time, right? I mean, and so Osarseph isn't writing in hieroglyphics; he's just writing in Aramaic. So it seems like that means that there's some. Just the problem is we've burnt it all. Is that the case, or is it all just?
Now,
is even this lies
before
about
we
the
get
history
onto that-
lies? you know?
Before we get onto that, it's like this: if somebody is going to say to me that, hey, in Washington D.C. there was a building, there used to be an ancient Egyptian pyramid there, I will say, where is it? And then if they can't show it me, then I will say, hey, you're lying. So now the thing is, they've told us that there is an ancient Egyptian temple. Here it is in the Valley of Kings, and you can go and see it there today. And then you can see that there's hieroglyphics on the walls with these ancient Egyptian gods and pharaoh stories and all these things. And they're telling us this is history, and this is the proof ancient Egypt existed. And then I look at photographs of that place, not one or two, many, and I can find photographs of them building the temple, and there's no temple there whatsoever in 1880. Then I can say I've got proof this temple didn't exist, and I've just sent you that proof. So it doesn't matter what historians say. I can turn around and say, hey, I went to the moon. I could write a book and say, hey, there's Egyptians living on the moon. So it doesn't matter what the church says, or what Manetho says, or what anybody else says, even if these people exist or not. We've got a problem. We can't find ancient Greece or ancient Egypt. We can't find them, Andreas. We've got a serious problem. I've sent you the evidence. Okay, I only sent you one temple, but in my book, Ancient Egypt, and in the other book, Ancient Greece, you can find many of them. Now let's have a look at the temple at Karnak in Luxor. Yeah? Chichen Itza. They're in the books, Ancient Egypt and Ancient Greece, and in some other books that I've written. Now, here is the picture of Luxor. Okay, it's not about reassemble. You can actually see them building and decorating the place, and they've got the same train lines to bring everything, and you've got it there. And then the photographs of them bringing the statues, ancient Egyptian statues, they're bringing it to the site. Yeah, these guys, they took souvenir photographs. I haven't got a clue why. Yeah. They took them, and then their buddies, let's say you and me, we did a scam, yeah, and we built a temple, and we lied to everybody and say, hey, this is the ancient Antarcticans, they built this place 5,000 years ago, we're making millions of dollars, and then suddenly I backstab you, and I've kept all these photographs, and then 10 years later I grass you up and I release the photographs online everywhere, and then I'm making money from them. That's what's going on. So that's why we've got these photographs. Yeah? Can you see? So as you can see, there's more. Now this is the actual, have a look at the full site. They're constructing it. As you can see, there's modern metal bars there, and you can actually see videos from the 1920s. Let me send you that. You'll see advanced scaffoldings inside Luxor to hold all the pillars up, because the pillars were actually falling apart. Let me send you. You can find the videos. They're in Arabic, so people will have to wait. Have a look at the scaffolding. Yeah, that's inside. Can you see the scaffolding? I've just sent it, and as you could see, that they, so they didn't just have slave workers. That scaffoldings, and there's the gate there to seal it off so that nobody can go inside. After they've put all these sheep or ram or the dogs and everything laid out. Yeah. So as you can see, yes. Oh, and now we've got the history of ancient Egypt. So once again, you can talk about Akhenaten, you can talk about Ramesses, you can talk about Cleopatra, and you'll say, hey, all the writings on the wall in this temple. I'll say, wait, have a look at this place. This temple wasn't even here 100 years ago. I'll say there was no writing, nothing there. So we can't find ancient Egypt. So it doesn't matter how many times, yeah, the Bible, the church, or all these manuscripts say that they're there, yeah, and most of these manuscripts we can't prove that they're older than the 16th or 17th century. We can't prove many of these church documents. Oh, they're going to tell us carbon dating. Oh, this is 2,000, 3,000 years old. Get real. The photographs show there's no temples there. Can you see it? Ancient Greece. I just showed you there is no Celsus. If there is no Celsus, how can there be Alexandria? It seemed like me saying that the United States is called the United States of Japan, and you're going to say, hey. A country called Japan doesn't exist, so therefore there can be no United States of Japan. But if we can find Japan, then we can say maybe there possibly was a United States of Japan. But we cannot find ancient Greece, and we can find construction photos and fake monuments. Then we can say, hey, this means Alexandria was a lie. So now that we can't find ancient Egypt, it means that the biblical version and all the official history that they've told us about ancient Egypt is a lie. Now there is an opposition. Now the opposition, nobody wants to hear it. But Anatoly Fomenko mentioned it. Yes, he's saying, hey, have a look. Northern European kings had Arabic writing. Northern European kings were Muslims. The world global language was actually Arabic, and then everyone's ignoring it, and so it's like we've got a choice now. We can actually have a look at the other side of the world to see what they say. I am not telling anybody to look at modern Islam or Islamic textbooks, because most of them have been written in the last 2-3 centuries by the Jesuits and other European corporations, like the Dutch East India Corporation and the British East India Corporation, opened many printing presses in the Middle East, and they printed and they fabricated many Islamic documents. Many Muslims follow these Islamic things. Yeah, I'm not asking anybody to look at Islam. I'm saying to look at history. The Quran is a historical document, same like the Bible. The Bible is a historical document in the West. The Quran is the opposition. Yeah, and it's actually, it doesn't use the word Pharaoh. It says the word Firaun. Yes, that I noticed that was one difference. Yeah, and same like when we talk about Moses and Pharaoh and Firaun, I'll have to state this example. It's like, for example, there's the Jesuits. Yes, and before the letter J was introduced, Jesus Christ was called Ayesa. That's why it's called Society Ayesa. Yes, the church itself, anybody in Europe called Jesus Ayesa. That's why it's called Society Ayesa. Today it's called Gesù in Italian, but it's originally Ayesa. And then there's all these people who are coming out with posts and blogs, yes, and it's giving so much misinformation that Jesus Christ is from the name Yeshua or Joshua. Yes, but then anybody who even opens up the Old Testament, which has got many fabrications, in the Old Testament itself, it says Joshua was not called Joshua. He was called Esau, or Osi, or Osia, depending how you want to pronounce it. And the Quran itself is saying that Jesus Christ is called Esau. Now, this means the Quran is correct. So once again, we've got a problem. The Quran has once again claimed something, and then all these people who are saying it was Joshua, get rid of the J, and then have a look at even the Old Testament, even with its fabrications, we've got that. And once again, the Quran offers an alternative history. And then the Jesuits themselves are called Societe Ursa. Yes. So when we come to Moses and Pharaoh, yes, when it comes to Pharaoh, the Quran doesn't actually say pharaohs, as in plural. Those are the stories that they tell us. Yes, based on the hieroglyphics and everything else they found in temples that don't exist 100 years ago. That the photographic evidence shows that you can look for it yourself. The Temple of Queen Hatshepsut, Google, 1880. And you'll think, hey, it's not there. And then look at the temple today and look through all the artwork and decorations and you think, hey, they've got so many stories. It's not even there. It seemed like me saying that in Antarctica, New York is in Antarctica, and then you go there and say, hey, I can't see anything here. There's nothing there. Yeah, so now let's go down to, this is from, because we're speaking about Hebrew, let's go to Princeton University. I've just sent you a picture of Princeton University, and this is Professor Mark Cohen from Princeton University, and he said he has shown evidence that in the Middle Ages, the Jews, even their Jewish religious literature, was written in Arabic in Europe. France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, etc. Now the thing is, because you turn around and you want to know, saying the connection between Pharaoh and the name and Hebrew. So now what I'm showing you is in the Middle Ages, the Jews are all, the majority, they're in the Mediterranean. We're talking about France, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, Austria, Yugoslavia, Greece, Spain, Portugal. They're speaking Arabic, writing their religious books in Arabic. Yes? Yes. So this is well known. It's not something that I am making up. So now this is the first thing. It's strange that the Jews, yes, of that time are writing in Arabic. And Muhammad and Moses and Jesus Christ, yes, they're cousins from the same family. If you're from the same family, then, you know, it's natural that you're going to speak the same language. Your granddaddy spoke the same language. And if they're going to say, oh, the language changed, you know, the United States is there, and it's not changed the English in 100 or 200 years. And even if they say it's been 200-300 years, so now we're talking about the Jews having their religious books in Arabic throughout the Mediterranean. So this means, wait, so what about the Torah? The Torah must have been in Arabic if all the Jewish religious books were in Arabic. And the Jews spoke Arabic in the Middle Ages along the Mediterranean. And then even according to the official history, because we cannot actually find any evidence of a Hebrew language. There is no real evidence that the evidence that people present, that people can look at it and say it's been falsified. So historians say that the Hebrew language, I've sent you another link, it says was dead from the 3rd century. It died 1,700 years ago. So the Hebrew language was dead. So, and then these followers of the Torah, are speaking in Arabic, and we can't find evidence of it that they spoke Hebrew. And then the Hebrew library, Hebrew Bible that we've got, even if we compare it to the Gothic Bible in Poland, the Old Testament and everything, we cannot find the Old Testament before the 15th century or 16th century. But now we've got a problem, because the thing is, what historians are saying, what they're saying is that 7 of them have survived. So now let's have a look at what the reality is. The reality is this, that how many Arabic books did they burn? Let's have a look. Just in Spain, in one fire, everybody's talking about the Library of Alexandria. And it doesn't exist. We can't find ancient Greece, and there's no books there. Why is nobody speaking about the millions of Arabic books that were burnt only 500 years ago in Europe. I've just sent you evidence that people can. This is from the BBC. 1 million, and these books were were used by Jews, Christians, and everybody. Why were they using Arabic? We're talking millions of books. This is the hypocrisy and the biggest scam in history in this side of the world where I live, in England and in Europe. And what I call a big joke is that they will speak about the Library of Alexandria, yes, in ancient Egypt with the ancient Greeks. And nobody's going to talk about the millions of Arabic books that were burnt in Europe. We're talking millions of books. That means millions of people spoke Arabic in Europe. Yes. And then what nobody ever has a look at, like, for example, we mentioned Jesuits. Yeah, so let's get to the bottom line of the Jesuits. Now, the thing is, yes, everybody talks about the Jesuits, and they went all around the world. So the thing is, everybody will say, why is David talking about these subjects? Now, the thing is, it's very important for us to understand the history. We must talk about it. Everyone's going to speak about Tartaria and say it's Russia and say, look, the map shows that region. Why aren't they talking about all the kings and princes of that region were Muslims and they all had Arabic writing, all these Russians? That shows that the full subject of Tartaria has become a joke. Now, another thing is, everybody talks about the Jesuits, but I've almost never or hardly ever heard this from anybody. That I had to look for this myself and go through the works of Fomenko. Now, this is going to shock you. Now, have a look at why the Jesuits were created and what were their plans. 1534 official history. The first Jesuits, were appointed by the Pope. Yes, Pope Paul III. Yes, they are an order of the Roman Catholic Church. And what was their plans? Their plans were for the conversion of Muslims. And they were created in Paris, in France, to convert Muslims. The whole objective and the reason for the original existence of Jesuits was because of Islam and Muslims. But now we've got a problem. Historians, they're trying to use nice words. And this shows that they're liars, because they're telling us, they just wanted to convert people. We got the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're preachers. They're trying to convert people. But let's have a look at what convert meant at that time. And I've sent you a picture what convert meant in them days. Convert meant, hey you, convert or die. That's what it meant.
And also you could imagine, like, mathematically, like the conversion of these books, conversions of these cultures, not just these people, but their entire, to completely take their culture and assimilate it, you'd have to convert.
So now we got a problem. In Europe, we've got people like the Cathars, the Bogomils, the Waldensians, many other people. All of them denied the crucifixion. All of them refused to accept that Christ is the Son of God. Yes, all these people, yes. And then the church wants to convert these so-called Muslims, and Arabic books are being used all over Europe. What was their religion? And then we've got all these skulls and bones in the bottom of churches. Yeah. Now, one of the biggest crimes in history in this side of the world, that is criminal, what they've done to us, that we're born in this side of the world, is this. It's a big crime that we know that the Jesuits have done things in the past, and that maybe they've changed today. But what they did a few centuries ago, everybody knows it is suspicious. And they're not telling us what their plans were. Their plans were to convert Muslims, convert or die. And then they were set up in Paris. Yeah, by the year 1600, yeah, they sent 1,000 Jesuits into Germany. Yeah, but Germany is supposed to have not had Muslims at the time. And they're saying, oh no, they were Protestants. Is that really true? We got a serious problem with the history they're telling us. So now this is the reason why we cannot ignore what the opposition, what these Muslims are saying in the other side of the world. Now, if we want to ignore that, then it's our mistake. It is our mistake because we've got the books in Europe, the millions of books were Arabic. Now, We don't know why they were Arabic. They're telling us these guys came from the deserts with their camels, and then they brought these their language and their books to Europe. It sounds like a joke. Can you imagine people jumping around on camels coming from Afghanistan with their books and their language into Europe? It doesn't make sense. It's just a crazy, pathetic, ridiculous story that people just believe. I don't know how they could believe it. So I forgot why we got onto this point anyway. But as you can see, we cannot ignore these things. We cannot understand ancient Egypt or ancient Greece if we stick to one side of the history. There is the other side. Now,
right. I think it's we were looking at how the Quran says things, and the fact that so much of what we understand about the Bible and the Torah are coming from Arabic sources. So the Quran might be a better, more authentic story about Moses, who again is supposedly alive during the time. Another less authentic story about Akhenaten.
Do you know what I realized myself? If the books in Europe, the millions of them, 400 or 500 years ago, if they were in Arabic, then this means that the original gospel of Jesus Christ must have been in Arabic too. Now somebody will say, why would David say such a thing like that? Because the Jews themselves are writing in Arabic in the Middle Ages in Europe.
So how do you speak? Okay, so we had started earlier talking about Aramaic. How do you feel about Aramaic then? And
now the thing is, imagine if you're going to say, how do you feel about the dialect that's in Florida, in Texas? How do you feel, man? Good day, man.
As an American, I feel strongly, but
yeah. So if somebody is going to speak about Aramaic, you're speaking about a dialect. In the Middle East, it's just one regional dialect of Arabic. That's all it is. It seemed like saying, hey, what about in Brooklyn 20 years ago? They had their own accent. What about in is it South California, South Los Angeles? Yes. Go to South Los Angeles, hear their dialect. Yo, don't do this, man. I don't want to use any bad language. Okay. I don't want to use any bad language.
You can find pardon my French and Tartarian, but you can find some examples of similarities between Arabic and Aramaic.
It's not some examples. It's actually the same language, but with different.
You can find a lot of differences too, though, right?
When you say differences, I'm going to give you an example now. If you are going to go to just to an area in New York where there's high poverty, yes, and where the education system is not that good, and then the students are writing something, yes, and they're writing something down, yes, because these documents that you've got in Aramaic are written by monks, and we don't have any ancient original manuscripts from Aramaic, apart from some things that they claim, like the Nag Hammadi and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which people have shown to be forgeries, but no, the church.
Well, we do have some. Okay, so there's Canaanite and Aramaic inscriptions on a lot of things in Egypt, to giving you that. But Turkey has the
as you mentioned
steel.
The inscriptions.
You've got
let's go to Baalbek.
Imperial, and then what about it? Wait, really quickly. Also, what about Imperial Aramaic? Because the Neo-Assyrian Empire used Imperial under Darius. Darius had Imperial
Aramaic. Yes, let's go to one of their major sites called Baalbek. Yes. So same like you mentioned the Egyptians, and I showed you, hey, this temple wasn't even here. They only built it in the last 100 years. Then they decorated it with hieroglyphics, and they're saying this is history.
Oh, don't take Baalbek away from me. Are you gonna destroy Baalbek now?
I'm not destroying anything. That's not fair. That's not fair. So now,
no, that's fair.
Because you've mentioned Aramaic, I'm so glad that I learned this. Do you know why? Because I'm so happy to help the world. Now the thing is, let me show you a photograph of Baalbek in 1870. Yes, in 1870, this photograph is by people who are classified by the local Middle Eastern people as spies. This one and another one, this one or the other one I'm sending you to, about 100 to 150 years ago. Now, the first photograph, as you can see, is 1870. And the first photograph, there's no grass there, nothing there whatsoever. Yes? And there's
still pretty big stones, though, to be fair.
Oh, wait. you're looking at 1870, and then the second picture is after they did a bit of work there, and that's from 1900 when Gertrude Bell went there. And Gertrude Bell was a British spy, and she was who was involved in fabricating history. Now then, let's look at the place today. Have you seen the difference?
Wow.
Yes. And then they're saying, hey, it's
Yeah, this is
ancient
crazy.
Baalbek with all these ancient pillars and everything. Yes, they actually...
Wow. Okay, well, that's clearly nuts. Adding those pillars and everything, I'll give you that. But what about the giant stones still in 1870? There are some giant stones around
Well, if
there,
you're going to say
right?
giant stones in 1870, we've got even bigger stones in Venice in the 1700s.
Right.
Yeah, even bigger.
Right.
That's actually...
So what does that
actually,
say?
that building
How does
looks
that
like
speak?
a damaged building from the 17th century. There's not much difference.
So yeah, exactly. So that's the question there. So in terms of Tartarian architecture, what do you think this is built on top of? They've taken the scraps of a destroyed
now that you've mentioned
civilization.
Tartarian architecture, yeah. The thing is, now that you've mentioned it, yeah. I went this through the other day with somebody who's in the Tartaria groups, and the thing is, he added me as a friend, and he went through my books and he was shocked because there's all these things, there's so many books and everything showing all this great, amazing architecture. Now, I'm going to send you a building and I'm going to see what you have to say right now. Yes? This building that I'm sending you here, you can clearly see that it looks like a stone building. Let me just send you a picture of it. Yeah? And I want you to describe this building to me. Is it the Renaissance or the Tudor times? Is it 16th century or 15th century? And does it have Saracen architecture or does it have Frankish architecture on this building here?
Well, I mean, Ferengi means Frank, right, in Arabic? So I would say this is Ferengi architecture. This looks a bit of both. Yeah. When's it supposed to be? 15th century?
What about that tower?
18th
Does
century?
that tower look like a Saracen tower? Can you see the...
It's exactly the same. The exactly same mining style towers, the squared towers, and also you have the Technasma poles. What is this
How
building
old do you
again?
think that
Where
building
this
is?
mining place? Well, I mean, bricks can be sandblasted. It could be old. I would say between 200 years and 600 years.
Okay, now the thing is,
how about that?
notice on the right-hand side, there's that triangular roof there. Can you see it? Now, those things are common, yes, in many Renaissance buildings in Europe, or buildings that they claim are the Renaissance. Yeah, you've seen them, yes? Yes?
Yeah.
So now let me show you.
I mean, it could be older, too, because the stones look old enough.
It could be older, yes. So now the thing is, let me show you this building from a distance, and this is actually going to totally amaze you. Now, the thing is, the average person, they just believe anything online and they don't check it. So now I'm going to send you a better picture of this building, and then people will be able to figure out St. Petersburg and all these other so-called Tartarian cities. Yeah. Let me send you from on top of a mountain, and this actually looks like what do you call it? It actually looks like one of the great buildings of St. Petersburg. But actually, this building's in England. Have a look at it. Yeah, this is looking at the building from another angle. It actually looks like one of these. It looks like a princely palace that you will find in Italy or France or anywhere else. And you can see that pole there. We've got poles like that they call obelisks. Yes. Let me say. Before I tell you the secret of where this place is, this is actually going to totally shock you. That what you will find the similar places in London, Petersburg, many places around the world. Yes, let me send you an example of Petersburg, because then the thing is, you will realize that many people who are going online, they're just being brainwashed by people in Tartaria groups who've never bothered to actually check the history or considered there's an opposition to Western history. Yes?
I mean, look at the obelisk. The obelisk says a lot. I think the obelisk kind of stands out.
Oh,
Then, of course, if this is the same building that we were judging as 200 years old earlier, this adds 800 years. This all of a sudden this looks very similar to some of the buildings in Toledo.
Yes.
Instantly.
As you've noticed,
right.
You'll find similar buildings, exactly the same style in France and in northern Spain. Now I'm going.
Places that were known to be Arabic. Spain was run by Maimonides, who was Jewish, but he was in charge of an Arabic
now I'm sending you
state,
a place where I've been to. It's near what's that road called? I forgot. The most famous road where everybody walks in Petersburg. And I'm sending you the same place, and you will see a similar building in Petersburg. There's many pictures for it online. This is just one picture. Oh, Nevsky Prospect. And many foreigners, they call it Nevsky Prospect. But here's Nevsky Prospect. And they're telling us this is an obelisk with that palace there. Mm-hmm. And as you'll notice...
Wow, and it has the electrum on top of it, the flame on top of the obelisk.
As you've noticed, the building is similar. Now I'm going to give the secret away, and then this is when people are going to have to reconsider, the full history of that's going a bit too far in these Tartaria groups, that I think that some people are doing these things on purpose. Yeah. Now let me show you what this obelisk is in that the original place I sent you is actually in England. And the thing is, many of these obelisks, people can find out what they really are. Now here is the real deal. Can you see it? Have you found it? Yeah. It's actually a factory.
Yeah, right there. So what I find really interesting is you've got these obelisks, but you also have mentioned mining.
Wait, have you not seen it?
They look like mining towers.
Wait, it's a mining tower.
The salt mill chimney?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. The salt mill chimney. And I'm associating with an obelisk, right? An obelisk could be a salt mill chimney.
All these big buildings that all these people are talking about, brainwashing half the world, saying, look at these
smokestacks.
No, they're saying, look at these great, amazing palaces. We can't find no plumbing in these buildings. We can't find no water pipes.
Freud's saying they built it to be a phallic representation. No, it's a freaking smokestack.
It's just a chimney for that factory.
It's just a chimney.
Have a look at what's inside the factory. Inside the factory, as you can see, is machinery, and the plumbing and the electric lines and everything else are actually not under the floorboard. So, have you found the four new
They're
pictures?
above. Yeah, they're aerial. They're aerial.
They're aerial.
Above.
That's why many of these buildings that.
And who are these little children running the machines? All the pictures have children.
Oh yeah,
in them.
they kidnapped them from Eastern Europe because Eastern Europe.
She doesn't look very happy.
They kidnapped them from Eastern Europe. My book, Orphan Trains, explains how they took them away, and that's why the population in Western Europe started to increase, because they took them as slaves.
I mean, it's interesting because the machines, though, they look like they're at the right height to be run by children. Maybe they're small people.
Can you not see what I've just shown you? I've shown you the Saracen Tower and the Frankish Tower.
Yeah.
It's a hoax.
Have you?
Wait. Have you not just seen what I've just done and I've demonstrated to you?
Yeah.
I've just shown you that half these Tartarian buildings are not Tartarian at all. Nothing to do with free energy. Nothing to do with big giants or big doors. They were just factories.
I mean, well, hold on. If you have a geothermal energy source that's running through a chimney, that's free energy. I mean, that's exactly what right now they're talking about: geothermal smokestacks to power
they're talking about that
electric
right
cars and
I'm
towns.
talking about many of these buildings that they are claiming that
if they're mining facilities produce energy.
Factories.
I mean, yes. Well, the other thing I'm noticing is all these pictures are.
So this shows how far they've gone in telling lies. And now the thing is, it's got inside the Tartaria groups. The Tartaria groups are not going to find out the truth unless if they go back to the source and the beginning of this subject that went round like fire.
Right.
Anatoly Fomenko.
Right.
Yes.
Well, looking at these pictures you've shown me, I'm seeing also, along with the smokestack obelisks, these large bricks. And if you look at the proportionality of these bricks, are rather impressive, but they're not giant. And then it reminds me of the Teletat blocks, right? And Akhenaten's Amarna temple, supposedly, right? Which is these blocks they found everywhere, which is rather small blocks. I think they're 3-hand-sized blocks that they were able. The supposed stories they were able to build a temple very quickly because they used Teletot.
Because
it seems like it's all about bricks. It comes back to that stones.
Okay,
right?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because the thing is, many people. Yes, I'm going to send you a photograph from the 1920s now. Many people are asking, yes, how the hell did these people move let's say if they built the Sphinx or the pyramids recently, yes, with slaves, yeah, local slaves. How the hell did they move these big bricks? Well, the great thing is,
well, they were talking about. I've seen, yeah, buoyancy for some of the bigger bricks, but then this is a lot smaller bricks. So.
Now the great thing is, the best thing is the people who created the fake monuments. What they did is they took souvenir photographs. So thanks to them, I've got the evidence. Now I'm actually sending you pictures from the Giza Plateau, yes, in the 1920s, yes, and people will have to look for this themselves. They'll find it. They'll have to translate into Arabic on Google Translate and look for the images, photos, videos on Egyptian television. Now here is at the Giza Plateau in 1920. There's workers there with modern metal or some type of bars, and they're lifting and carrying a big block. Can you see it? Have you received that?
Like a tire. It looks like a tire. They're lifting it with a tire lift.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the thing is,
on a rail, and they're pushing it on wheels.
Yeah, so that's what they're doing. And then here you will see on the left-hand side. There's workers there. There were slaves, the British, French, Italian empires. You'll see there's a man with a stick, and he's just hit that slave on the shoulder.
Oh my gosh! What the heck? Yeah.
Oh, okay. The full video is on my it's on my Facebook timeline right now. But more information is in my book, Ancient Egypt. Yeah, it's actually there.
You can see though. This makes perfect sense. You've got a tire rack, Archimedes
you've just
lever.
Seen the evidence with your own eyes. That's from the 1920s. Right. They're moving one of these blocks on the Giza Plateau. Yes.
So I look at all these stories like Josephus, Manetho, Archimedes as trying to give us some credence of what happened in Tartaria, because they're saying, oh, these guys went to these places that were essentially Tartaria, and that's why we know about the lever or buoyancy or math formulas. What is the caseage of actual information escaping out of the lost civilization? What do we have that is real? Because if everything is just completely fabricated by these guys, it says two things. One, that we don't know about Tartaria. Well, hold on, just two things. One is that it tells us that we hold on really quickly. One is we don't know about Tartaria if it's all a lie. But the other thing is it says that the people that are manufacturing these things do have great technology, because the fact that he can lift this stone with these wheels now, whomever is in charge and making up history has this great technology. So what is it telling us?
Now, the thing is, you've asked many questions in one question. That's why I thought I'd stop you at the first question. So which one do you want me to answer?
I can't help it. You're just going to have to go with what you feel.
That's like asking several questions in one go. Yes.
Follow your heart.
Yeah. So that's going to be difficult to answer. But let's get to the bottom line. So you're saying, where do we start? Where do we go? So now, if you are living in Russia, and you grew up in the Russian education system, then you will learn more about Russia. Yes. If you grew up in, let's say, Italy, they'll focus more on the ancient Romans. If you grew up in United States, the American Civil War, things like that. If you grew up in Japan, it's going to be about the Union of Japan in 1603, which is exactly the same history as the Union of England in 1603. Yes. And they'll teach you, about the Meiji Restoration, things like that. If you grew up in the Philippines, they'll say the Philippines was Muslim, yes, until mysteriously in the 15th or 16th century, they were invaded by the Vatican's allies, and they had inquisitions. They will learn about that. If you're in Australia, Captain Cook came here, how they built the cities and built that. So now one thing that we do know is that from our experience, from living in this side of the world, that people in Australia are having the same problems with the history that they're told, same like I'm having in England. That's why you can talk to me and you're in the United States. The people are having the same problem in Egypt. We found Egyptians in the Tartaria groups commenting, yes, that people all over the world are having problems. Now, everybody is having a problem with all their histories that are being taught to them in schools and universities. Now, if you have a look at the history of universities, yes, I put it in my book, Skulls and Bones, and in the Renaissance. The first universities were opened, according to official history, the first universities were opened by the Vatican and the Church and their allies. They were the first ones. Yes, but let me just send you that so that people can verify that themselves. Yeah, most European universities were created during the Renaissance, 16th century, etc. After that. So let me just send you that so that people can check that themselves. Yeah. Yeah, so they can check. They were created in the 16th, 17th century. Who created these universities? Most of the universities were created by the Church and its allies. You'll find that in who created the first universities. Let me send you this. You can check this in Oxford University. Oh wait, let me send you one of their biographies. The first universities were opened by the Church and its boys. Yes, so they opened the first universities. Yes, and they were opened during the Renaissance. Then they practically had a monopoly on the manuscripts, and the Jesuits and the rest of them, they opened the rest of the universities. Yes, so the thing is, and then it was Christian organizations that ran all the schools in England, America, and everywhere else, based on the manuscripts that were created by the Church and its allies. Yes, and then all the colonial universities in India and China, they're the major universities in that side of the world. South America were opened by the British, French, Spanish, and Dutch. Yes, and they had contracts with the Vatican. Yeah, they had agreements. Yes, after the Renaissance, in the 15th and 16th centuries, that everybody thinks the New World Order is maybe a hoax or something. But let me give you an example. When the Church and its boys, the churches, invented and wrote something called the New Testament, they called it the New Law. They wanted a new system. They wanted a new world. They wanted a new world order 500 years ago. And they said that the old law is the Old Testament, the old world order. And they still have not yet to this day fully established the new world order. So what happened is that the Vatican made agreements that you can check these agreements. This is not a conspiracy, not something I'm making it up. It's even in Wikipedia. Yes, they started making agreements in 1479, 1493, 94. The first few agreements that that involved the Spanish, the Germans, and a few others. You know, the Holy Roman Emperors, or the nobility in Europe and the Vatican, that they're going to invade the world and divide it between them. Around that time, the Jesuits were formed, and the Jesuits went along with the colonial militia, and their duty was to convert Muslims. Now, the strange thing is, the Jesuits went to Canada. The Jesuits went to the United States. People don't know this, but the Inquisition that's looking for the Muslims was in the United States. The Inquisition looking for Muslims was in Mexico. The Inquisition looking for Muslims was in Venezuela. What sort of Muslims are they looking for there? And then the Jesuits were created and made plans to convert Muslims. The Jesuits had their mission sent to Japan, and then after that, there was the forced opening up of Japan. But according to history, we've been told that Japan didn't have Muslims and never has in the past, or realistically did not. So what the hell is going on here?
Well, there's some interesting stuff there too, actually, because you know, like the word Osama is the Arabic word for
You're right. Ah, yes, you've noticed. Lion, like Haruka,
Lion King. Yes, there's so many. There's so many examples of words that are Japanese and Arabic. Yeah.
Yeah. Wakarimasu ka?
Right. Oh my gosh, I just made this connection because of what you said. Okay, so just really quickly, I'm sorry, but you focused something into my mind. The Japanese history, officially even, according to, you know, the 700s around the time of the Arabics that's the Heian period. The Heian period is where the katana and all this stuff and new types of Japanese script language emerges, where they're writing in phonetics for the first time, right? Which is not coming from China. And then you've got the fact that Heian, if you really pronounce it with the correct, I mean, H and K, you can't use H and K as this big switch. So it's the the Khan period, and that's when the shoguns, the Khans, emerge. Well, if Arabic's in every culture, it might as well be in Japanese, but that's pretty impressive, you have to admit.
Yes. I'll give you an example. I noticed that up to half the Japanese names are similar to Turkish Arabic names. Up to half. It's like they have the name Ayase, and then the Turks have Ayse, and the Arabs have Aisha. Yeah, so the thing is, I found Haruka, and then they've got Haruna and all these similar names. I noticed that because I went to Japan several times. I've always thought that Japan has been it's something different.
Well, I mean,
because
it's
an island nation.
They said that they destroyed. The Jesuits were there. They were a third. They won't admit they were Muslim or Arabic, but they'll admit they were a third to a half Catholic before the Edo period. They killed off so many of the Catholic Japanese. So if that's the case, then we do know that there's a chance that some of those Catholics came from areas where they were in Spain and spoke Arabic. So the likelihood of there being Arabic in Spain through the connection to whatever we consider Catholic now, but we don't know what that really was then. If it was really Jesuit, it probably could have been Muslim. They consider them Christian.
Yes. So now the best thing to do is I went through Jesuit records. They claim it's from the 16th century, 17th century. Of course, the dating and the timeline, many people say is a forgery. So now the thing is, the first few things that people noticed is that the older Japanese that they call the Ainu, here are photographs of them, and they all had long beards. Yeah, some of these people do in Europe, and the Japanese don't have big beards. So now let me send you some documents made by European visitors to Japan. Here is the King of Japan in the year 1780. I've just sent you a photograph.
He's Ainu. He's an Ainu indigenous. So the Ainu indigenous were not Asian looking.
Yeah, but now I'm sending you pictures of historical documents of Japan. This is from the year 1780. This was drawn by Pierre Dufour.
And he's wearing Turkish clothing entirely.
You can say it's Turkish, but you're going to say it's Turkish because, Croatia, Turkey. Well, but if you're somebody, the Iranians will say it's Iranian. The Uzbekistanis will say it's theirs. So
that's
actually
totally fair.
So what we're saying is, damn, this guy is now the thing is they called him the Shogun. Now the strange thing is most people don't check out what is the meaning of Shogun. Now the thing is the word Shogun is an invented word by the Europeans. Now let me send you another book from the 18th century of other European travelers that went to Japan, and they did a portrait of another ruler of Japan. This is by Nicholas de la Messin, and have a look at him. As you can see, once again, looks like, let's not say Arab, Iranian, clearly looks like these Islamic type of people.
He's kind of Tartarian looking, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Oh, when you say Tartarian, every king of Tartaria has been shown to be wearing Arabic crowns.
Right, and the octagonal star. A lot of time they have this star on this sort of turban thing with feathers.
Oh, but
absolutely.
I have a star on when I'm wearing my blazer and tie.
Yeah, but, right. Of course.
I do it for decoration.
Yeah.
I do that for decoration.
Well, it could mean something that the king has a decoration of a general or something. I mean, the way we associate military with kingdoms.
Instead of speculating, let's stick to a bit more to keep it simple, because everybody's lost. That person in that photograph does not look Japanese. He doesn't look Han Chinese. He doesn't look Korean, in the Mongolian Asiatic sense. But he looks like President Erdogan of Turkey.
But we do know that there are indigenous Japanese people. The Ainu,
that was a good one.
The
He looks like Erdogan.
He does a bit. Okay, the mustache kind of sticks out. But when you look at the pictures of the Ainu indigenous Japanese, where there are tens of thousands today, clearly looking at those pictures, we see that they were not all from Mongolia. You know, that this is an island and that there were people that moved
now
there.
the thing is, people are focusing on the Ainu. So before we get onto the Ainu, now I'm sending you the helmets of the kings of Moscow, so that it's clear for once and for all. This is the helmet of, it's known as the Jericho helmet of Alexei Mikhailovich, a Russian Tsar, during the Middle Ages. Yes, this is the Jericho cap for the military ceremony. And it's got a verse of the Quran right above it. It's in the Kremlin Museum. That shows the kings of Tartaria. This is one. Now, let me send you the helmet of Tsar Mikhail Romanov. Yes, they call him Romanov, but we can't prove he was a Romanov, but of Tsar Mikhail, or who they call Mikhail Romanov. And his helmet of this king also has Arabic written all over it. Now let me send you in Eastern Europe, if you're in Serbia especially, Alexander Nevsky is so big there. Yes, or in Bulgaria, Alexander Nevsky Church. Yes, Alexander Nevsky is so big, like, let's say, St. George is big for England. Yes, and let me send you the helmet of Alexander Nevsky. Yes, there is no evidence of a Tatar civilization that was not Muslim. This helmet was worn by Ivan the Terrible, and they're telling us Ivan the Terrible killed Muslims. Yeah, because, you know, the helmets get passed on from father to son. I've shown you enough to show you that I'm not making it up. You can go to the Kremlin Museum, you'll see all this stuff for yourself. And then all the armory that's made from gold and silver and everything else of all the kings and the princes of Russia, yeah, they've all got Arabic writing all over them that people can check it online. So anybody who wants to talk about Tartaria, it's almost a joke to even say maybe they were Muslim or maybe they were not. It's a joke to say the Japanese maybe spoke Japanese or not. Yes, they can't even hide it. That's why even in official history, they'll say the Tatars are traditionally Muslims and they had Arabic. You can't hide it. It's because there's too much evidence. Now the thing is, when we're talking about thousands of swords, yes, and they've all got Arabic, yes, then we got a problem. We have got a problem. So now we're coming back to Japan. So now the thing is, in Japan, I did a lot more research on this because I thought, hey, this is very strange that we've got these Japanese emperors, yeah, and they're calling them shoguns. So then I checked out who called them shogun, yes? And then the thing is, I found that Tokyo City was not called Tokyo. It was called Musashi. Yes, that was the biggest city in the southern islands. Now in the northern islands was the Ainu city, and that was called Isashi. Now the word shi could basically means like Tokyo-shi. Yes, like the city or area of Tokyo. So the Tokyo region was called Musashi, means the region of Musa. Now Musa is the Arabic word for Moses. Now in the north, the major city was Isashi. Now Isa is the Arabic name for Jesus. Now these are the two most famous cities from Japan, from the past. So once again, we've got emperors. There's more. I'm sending you pictures that none of them that they all look like something to do with Arabs. This is was drawn by Alan Manison Mallet. Yes, and he's got a turban on, and we can see it. But now, when we go to school, when we go to university, this is what we found in the historical manuscripts. But the pictures they show us today, and they're saying, no, this is the Emperor of Japan, dear. Have a look at the new picture. And it's a big difference. And then they're telling us that these men were called shogun. But now, parce que beaucoup de personnes, ils comprennent pas français, mais parce que j'ai étudié français un peu, je comprends français un peu, monsieur. Quand je regarde le nom de shogun en français, yes, the name shogun in French was written X-O-G-U-N. Now, the strange thing about X-O-G-U-N, it sounds like shogun today. But then the thing is, in the 17th and 18th century, many people wrote the word kogun with an X, not with a K. So now, and the G was pronounced Kahan, and that's why it was called
Khan.
Kahan or yes.
Khan.
So
right.
now the thing is, I'll write it down for you. So what they did is, in French, they called him Cowgun, and then today they called him ex-Shogun, and then today they call him Shogun. The pictures are a total forgeries, what they're showing us today. That the paintings we've got today of the Japanese are forgeries. So as you've noticed, the word Khan is the word king in English. So the thing is you know, as you can see, it had something to do with Islam. It had something to do with Islam, and everyone knows that the cities in Japan and the civilizations were wiped out. Yes, and the thing is, if people are going to say, hey, in Japan and Korea, these civilizations have been there for centuries, really? Oh, don't worry. Yes, I'm here to help you, Andreas, and let's see if that has any basis to it at all.
I mean, yes, it seems like, though, if the history is all okay, the difference between the history all being lies and the history being lied about is very extreme. If they're completely brilliant, inventive storytellers, that's a different thing than if they're just changing the history. Changing the history, at least it's
because
a lot.
There is a war going on. Everybody knows there's a war going on.
Of course, but if there's a lie, I can look through it. I'm pretty good at looking through fake news and seeing what it is. If it's a completely invented story, it's harder.
You've seen it with your own eyes. We cannot find Ephesus.
Well, if
St.
you go,
Paul
if you
there,
look,
he gave his speeches there. So now we've got to question who is St. Paul. Now we can't find
Right.
Celsus Library, the biggest Greek library where they exported books to Alexandria. So how can there be Alexandria without Celsus? It's same like saying that there is no New York and no Washington D.C., but America existed. No, for America to exist, the full history must be there. So the history that they've told us, we cannot find Athens. We cannot find it. And now what's even worse is that South Korea itself. Now the thing is, South Korea and Japan, yes, and the Japanese history, because I'm going to go next door so that people will know this is global. Here is a photograph of the city of Seoul in South Korea today. Now I'm going to send you the same place, yes, the place that you're looking. No, that's not Seoul. I sent you Taipei by accident. Sorry, delete that picture. That's Taipei.
nice place, but
that's Taipei. No, that's Seoul. I sent you the correct one. That's Seoul in South Korea. Now, let me send you the same place just 100 years ago, and you are going to be totally worried. This is the same place 100 years ago. And they're telling us that the South Koreans have lived in that condition, that those huts are not even permanent, no bricks, that the temporary huts that they had to rebuild them every year at that time. That and then there is another thing to show that
building. There's a giant Chinese style fort in the back too.
Oh, that was built by the Japanese colonialists, but they're
Right.
going to tell you that that's centuries old. That
Yeah.
what happened is they built that, and then you can find other construction photos of the full place, that there's nothing there in Seoul. And then you will see that the women are wearing these white cloth from the Industrial Revolution after that. This photograph's from around 100 years ago I've sent you, of the women wearing cloths, and then the wood has been made by machinery and imported there by the British, French, Japanese, Germans, Russians, and all these other people from Hong Kong. That the colonial empires, they're just building this place. And the people had just arrived. They just arrived. Yes, this information is in my book, Tatar City. Now, the point I'm trying to make about the thing is that they've just arrived. It means who was living there before, or did anybody even live there at all before? Now, this sounds like it's not important. It's very important, because, or otherwise we are not going to understand the history of Japan. And another big scam that nobody is talking about is everyone talks about Tataria. What about the last great Tatarian city? Only collapsed in the year 1900, called Tadar City. Today it's changed its name to Beijing. And then they're going to tell you there's all these great Chinese cities and everything throughout China. Yeah, I've been to over 100 cities, maybe 150 cities in China, because they got too many. Now, the full history of China and the full history of Asia is so scary that you can actually check the records, that you can find hardly any Asiatics That means, the Asian people in Northern Asia 150, 200 years ago. They weren't even there. You can't even find them. I've just sent you a photograph of a city in China called Shijiazhuang. I've been there myself. Now, the scariest thing is, if you look at the same place 100 years ago, if you look at the same place 100 years ago, there's hardly anybody there, and it's a settlement where the colonialists went there, the Europeans went there, and the Europeans even opened a church there, and they opened a train line there, and the people arrived. Now we're finding the same thing throughout China. Now I've sent you Shijiazhuang, but let me just show you 2 more cities, then you will know we've got a serious problem. This is from my book, Tatar City. Now this city is called Taiyuan. Today there's 6 million people there. Yeah, it's half the size of London, and I'm sending you the same place. Let me just send the date to you so that, and then show you why it's worrying. The same place in the year 1900, and it's got 40,000 people. And now the people who brought these people there had something to do with the Jesuits and the British and the French and the European Western Protestant colonialists, because there's a church in the middle of that place, yes, 100 years ago. And then now, if you go to the same city called Taiyuan, I've just shown you there's nothing in that city there, yes, apart from a wooden type of central village or something, a few thousand people. Today, there's temples and there's castles there, thousands of years old. Now everyone's heard of the Shaolin Temple. You know the Shaolin Temple for Kung Fu and things like that, yes?
It's kind of the Library of Alexandria story again. They've got this Kung Fu temple that everything's been lost from. But from there, they had people that knew how to levitate, right?
I'm glad that you've shown that connection, because let's check out the Shaolin Temple, yes, is near Zhengzhou City.
And it has these giant brick walls, just like everybody else. Wow.
Wait, but now look at Zhengzhou City. Yeah. Today, it's like you could say New York or London. Now, I'm sending you the same place in 1920, and there's hardly anything there, just a few thousand people there that just arrived, and the middle of that village, yes, everybody's living in these huts made of straw and everything, is, a Jesuit or Protestant church. But now when you go there today, they're going to be telling you, hey, there's ancient temples here, Shaolin, hey, we found these Buddhist monasteries here.
There's a lot of people all of a sudden, though. So what's the plan? You're bringing in on trains foundlings from where? Where are they all being created from? This is explained
in my book, Tatar City. They've totally invented the history of ancient China, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and the rest of it. Now, the thing is, you will say, why are they doing this? It actually looks like, from the evidence what I can see, it genuinely looks like that a man called Moses, or call him Prophet Moses, because I don't want many Jewish people saying disrespect. Yeah, this Prophet Moses set up a civilization with the Exodus.
I mean, the Egyptian narrative is you've got Ramesses is Ramoses.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, well, those temples.
Moses.
Well, let's look at these temples. Half of them aren't there. Right. 150 years ago in the old photographs.
But you have no matter what, you have the story of Moses in every one of these examples, even in Japan and China. So that's pretty amazing that Moses is making his way there.
When you're saying it's in Japan, as I showed you, yes, in Japan. Now the thing is, if anybody wants to change the name of New York, there'd be an outrage. In England, if somebody wants to change the name England, it would probably cause civil war.
Right.
Yes. People will fight. So now the strange thing is, they changed the name of Tokyo. It was originally Musashi. Mm-hmm. And then the thing is, they've changed even the history, that when we look at the historical documents from 200 years ago, the rulers look like Muslim rulers with turbans.
Muslim and Moses, again, with Moses. I mean, Moses everywhere.
Yes, now that you've said that, well done. Yeah. It's because many people have not realized this. The Quran actually says... Yeah, the Quran actually says Moses was a Muslim.
Right.
And it actually says that Moses and Jesus Christ, that they were... that Islam, Muhammad, came and joined Islam. Yes,
Yeah.
and that he was another leader. Now, the thing is, when people use the word prophet, it becomes a bit difficult. Let's use modern words. Yes, according to the Quran, according to the Bible, it's got a mystical definition of prophet that people can't seem to describe what it is.
Right.
According to the Quran, it's more simple. A prophet is somebody that God gave him technology, science, history, and morals, and a system of conduct. The Quran gives a different story. Now, for example, in the Quran it says that King Solomon, he received information and technology, and so did King David, for science, for construction, for technology, for mining. This is what the Quran says, that humans on earth, we didn't know anything, and then we were taught this. Yes, and then the people who were prophets were, in the modern sense, professors. Now, the word prophet actually means a professor, but somebody who's divine. So, but this is how the Quran portrays these men, that they were intelligent people. They fought for human rights. According to the Quran, Moses was fighting for freedom from oppression. This is how the Quran portrays Moses. Now, the story in the Western world shows other things. Yes. Now, the thing is, the Quran actually shows some other things as well. Yes. But the thing is, the Quran shows a totally different history of the world. Now, going back to Japan so that we don't get diverted. Yes. Right. So the thing is, when you're talking about Moses in Japan, it does not use the name Moses as it's described according to the modern Hebrew language or Latin, but in the Arabic. Okay. Now the thing is, language is a very big topic. Yes, because if you're going to talk about it, because they say that these changes that happened in Japan, they came through Korea, and as I've shown you, something's wrong with the history of Korea, as it looks like the people just arrived there only 100 years ago.
Right,
yes?
And they worship the moon, right? They have like a folk tradition with a moon goddess or something, which seems very Roman.
But when you look at the photographs of the people who are living there, what sort of tradition do you think people have over there? Now, if you want to actually compare those people today, go to somewhere like, let's say, Venezuela, for example, or to Colombia, and go to some of the villages where people are still living in similar types of houses. Yes?
Mud brick.
And then you'll see that they've got no worship system whatsoever. But somebody from the outside will come and say he's showing honor and worship to this stick or to this idol.
But they have this idea. They have this idea of weather being important, at least, is it not? I mean, because you have to remember. This is the thing. Okay, this is something I found because of you also. When you were talking about 19 and the importance of 19, looking into the tri-seasonal Egyptian calendar and all this other stuff about calendars around the world, the Hebrew calendar, the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar. And so it does not synchronize perfectly with the solar calendar, except that they've set it up to do so every 19 years. So the 19-year cycle is the lunar-solar elliptical.
Yeah, and Metonic cycle.
Right.
Yes.
So it's interesting that the Metonic cycle is the 19-year cycle, and that this is also something that matters to the Koreans because they're obsessed with the moon and they're using the lunar calendar. The similar also Muslims use the lunar calendar as well. Okay.
Now, the thing is, languages and calendars, those things will need a very long time for them. So the thing is, we focused on many things today, so I think we should just leave it at that. What we'll do is, for the benefit of people, like today I went through a few things from a few comments what viewers have said. So what we'll do is, because, for the advantages of people who joined your channel, what they should do is send you a list of questions and on the next topic that we do, and if it's within that list, what we'll do is from that list we'll look through what's relevant for that topic, and then we'll answer their questions. But anything I've spoken about today, I've made it clear that I cannot say everything within one video. So some people who comment and criticize saying he didn't mention this, he didn't mention that, he's not clear on this, he's wrong on this, he's right on this. Wait a minute. Read the full information, research it yourself, or read my books. If you don't want to read my books, you're welcome to go and research everything yourself. Now, if you're going to look at, instead of one monument in ancient Egypt, go and look at 100. And look at the photographs 100 years ago of 100 monuments. Then come back to actually make a statement, yes, and say, hey, this is right or this is wrong, or I believe this or I believe that. It's actually wrong to make a judgment on something. It's like, you've invited me to speak because you know that I've checked these things. Or otherwise, if you invited me to speak and if I hadn't checked so many things, then it would be ridiculous. You know, somebody will say, why have you invited him? He's got no evidence, supporting evidence. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah?
You've been around the world and you've seen a lot of things. I think it's worth hearing your experiences out and your perceptions. But yeah, guys, super chat your questions if you want to hear them answered first. And make sure you comment and like and subscribe and share this video with everybody so the word gets out there. Yeah. More from David Ewing Jr.
Up. Yes, it's a very challenging conversation that you're bringing these things up, because now the viewers can actually learn, yes, many things, and yes, they can benefit from it. Yeah, okay. It was great talking to you, Andreas, and hopefully we'll talk next time. Yeah.
I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. It always is.
Yeah. Have a great night ahead. Okay. Yeah. Bye.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.